Evening, folks, and welcome to White Walkers Chat and Crack. With me today is Wingnut, the right-hand man, Dave Topping himself. How are you, Dave?
I am very good, Nick King. How are you?
I am fine. And tonight we'll be discussing, amongst other things, we have a very special guest tonight, and that's Ian McKinley, formerly of Benetton and Italy fame. We'll be discussing what he's doing and Grassroots Rugby and the effect of COVID. We'll be discussing the 3 games that Ulster have played in the Pro 14 so far this season. We'll also be having a look at the Academy Sevens programme that was run a couple of weeks ago. And Ulster seemed to do quite well in that, so we'll discuss a little bit about that. Yes, we will have a chat about the Ireland selection, which will no doubt bring some interesting comments. Obviously, you'll have all heard the news that France go into total lockdown on Friday evening. We don't know what impact that will have on the game in France, probably quite a profound one. But if anybody gets any information on that, folks, can you pop it up on the chat bar on the side, and we'll pass it on to the rest of the members, because at this stage we don't really know. So anyway, Dave, have a good week. And Ian, welcome to the show. God blimey, I nearly ignored our guests.
Don't worry.
It's the magic of the
You're just
white.
to listen to this, so don't worry.
Oh, I know. Oh, tell you. Right, this will probably be a fairly short conversation about Grassroots Rugby, and then we'll talk about you and your roles. But you're obviously involved at Rainy and Dowd now. Has really anything been happening this season at grassroots level in club rugby?
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to at least get about 3 or 4 games under our belt. So that's obviously come to a stop again, unfortunately. So I think it's just in this block at the moment is just trying to keep guys sort of mentally active, because it's just tough for guys not being able to train properly, not go onto the field at least. So trying to do a small bit just to give, little targets during the week, because most guys at grassroots level, obviously, you've got your Monday to Friday job or you're studying, and then Saturday is your release. So just trying to give something, some sort of structure to your week, because it's incredibly difficult.
So at the moment then, is it more about Zoom meetings or emails, just say trying to set those goals? I mean, it's got to be very hard to keep guys motivated, as you say. They have other things in their lives, and then try to mind focused on the rugby as well.
Yeah, first objective, I suppose, for people is to make sure they're still working, is to keep the bills been paid, and people can, totally understand that. So I think it's just trying to have a balance of making sure that, you still keep in contact with rugby and just sort of keeping in touch. Everyone, I know I'm going a little bit mad at times, not being able to go to a pub or a restaurant or something, just to have a little bit of a release. So again, it's just keeping up that contact, really important.
And I suppose from a club perspective too, obviously, the longer that we're away from the game, the longer term. Obviously, you have to look at the financial side of things as well, and obviously there's going to be a lot of clubs under pressure with that. Where would you see the game going? Say, even into the new year.
I think it's from a professional point of view, it's pretty scary reading when you see the IRFU's report being released last week. You hear of 140 people been let go from the IRFU. It doesn't make for pretty reading, and I don't know, we won't really see the main effects of this financially probably until the turn of the new year. So it's very worrying for people, and that's almost the great thing about grassroots rugby, is that people play for the enjoyment of it. People make the effort to, as I said, they do their Monday to Friday slog and, looking after their family. And it's just a pure enjoyment thing, which, I take my hat off to anyone who, is on a bus, maybe going from Rainy down to Dolphin to play a game to come back up. It's not easy. So, the core, the essence of the game, I have no doubt that that's still, that'll never change. I suppose it's just you're going to see, the bigger teams at the moment. You see even in the soccer, that they're looking at coming together to have this big tournament with the top teams. Is that a route that rugby's going to potentially go down? I think time will just tell, but who knows what's been discussed behind the scenes.
Absolutely. I think as well, though, with, as you say, the reports that are coming out, and we know that all unions are under extreme financial pressure now with no fans, no games. There's going to be an issue with contracts in the professional teams with players. I think that's something that looks to me is going to come up. Will we be able to retain as many of our foreign players? Will we even maybe be able to have as many central contracts even as we would like at the end of the season? And that actually brings grassroots and club rugby more into the fray, because we're going to have to look more there, aren't we, for the talent that we bring through into academies, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably the point that, most Ulster supporters will be saying, that we haven't brought through good young Ulster players at the moment, maybe relying a little bit too much on other provinces to get our players, but Ulster have proved, and you'll probably speak about it later on, but the young guys are certainly there and coming through. So definitely, that could be a silver lining to this issue. Just investing more into young people and making sure that you've good Ulster players representing Ulster.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, I thought Dave was going to ask a question. I'm going to go to you now, actually. So, I mean, personally, obviously we all know your exploits when you played. Well, we know of you from playing back in Ireland, obviously playing for Benetton, playing for Italy. Could you explain just to the viewers your role currently? We noticed you're doing a bit of punditry as well, which is always good to see. You say we've all got to work, mate, haven't we?
They must have been short-staffed. I don't know how they worked that out, but it's a good experience, and in some ways, I suppose it's I'm standing up for Italy, because it's not all doom and gloom at the moment, but it was certainly the weekend depressed me hugely, not just with the international, but the club game. But no, I suppose my role at the moment has COVID has played a huge part in the last sort of 6 months of my life, and I was living over in Treviso. I was ready to be there for another couple of years, not with Treviso, but with another club, and just financially, COVID has taken a massive hit there, so there are no guarantees, and my wife is from Northern Ireland, and we just thought that this is as good a time as ever to step back and be as close as you can be to family and friends at the moment. And it's been a hectic sort of 10 years for me mentally, so I just think now, given all the circumstances, the stop-start nature of the club rugby, even the elite game, you've got viruses in teams, and all you have to do is look at the example of Wasps, how many players they were missing. So there's no guarantees really at the moment. So it's as good a time as ever, and I'm currently working in Ballymena Academy in the school with John Andrews there, who's also the same coach as with Rainey. So learning a lot from him, and it's a good group of players I'm working with up in Rainey.
Yeah, I'm just having a wee look here, just at the comments that are coming up there. First of all, Ian Gilbert, our resident Ulsterman, way out in the watery stick there. Ian, good to see you this evening. And some gent by the name, we have to be careful here. The lawyers say we must call him Kigo. Kigo says, "Great job, Ian, over the weekend on Virgin Sport." So obviously somebody was watching there.
Thank you.
Johnny Wappa, good evening to you. Evening. Hope everything's going well. And Gregor Galway. Hey, Gregor, good to see you back around there. You've been active today, and it's great to see you about. Ian just said there's no mention of the lockdown on the French rugby website yet. Say, well, thanks for that, Ian. I say keep an eye on it and see what's happening. And just coming through on the bottom there. Must be my brother, Richard. Reggie, how are you? Good to see you, Reggie. Hope everything's going well. And Casper's there.
I think I get your point, Ian. Sorry, David. I think I get your point, Ian, about Italy. I think it's hard to know exactly what to make of Italy, because if you look at Benetton, I know they haven't won any games, but they look a much sharper side this season to me, and I think they will upset a few teams this year. Definitely, they have been moving that way anyway. That lad, he looks like a serious talent. You as a 10 would probably be more equipped to talk about him than I am. But for 20 years old, that lad looks a serious talent to me. And there's a lot of youth coming into that side as well. So, we get all the usual cries about why Italy, why not Georgia. I think the Scotland result against Georgia on Friday night answers that question profoundly, in my opinion. We stick with because if you look at Benetton particularly, that's a team that I think are going the right direction. But What do you think of that lad, Garbisi, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no, he's like Paolo's a seriously talented player. He was captain of the under-20s last year. Tough game for him to start. Playing 9 and 10, you sort of rely a lot on your forward pack to give you that sort of front foot ball. And from experience of playing with Italy, front foot ball is a tough thing to come by. So I thought he conducted himself really well, and that last try at the end just sort of showed individual brilliance. You can't coach any of that. That's just identification of space, decision making under pressure. So for Italy, it's very exciting to have players like that, and that's sort of what I've been saying for years, and it's probably the same up in Ulster. I'm getting a little glimpse into what rugby is like up here, considering most of my time has been down in Leinster, and there are seriously talented players both in Ulster and Italy. It's just maybe where you could say the setup maybe hasn't been exactly right in getting these players fully through, and but that's not to say that there isn't talent, and it's honestly the same thing in Italy, is that you've got guys like this. I mean, there are other examples, not just Paolo, in the out half position, young guys that I've seen coming through that just whatever way they maybe fell off the track a little bit and there was no backup for them or something like that. And especially Italy, whenever it's not the main sport and you don't have that, numbers wise, wouldn't be particularly low, but it's just about making sure that they've got the right training structure to make that leap.
Progress. Yeah.
But I can understand the frustration from people saying, well, there should be the right relegation system, and whether I'm biased or not, but I use the example of when Italy beat Georgia in 2018. The gap was 11 points, but it should have been about 40, in my opinion. And I think you even just see sort of style and play, the skill level. I mean, I don't know how many people would have watched the Scotland-Georgia game, but really Georgia didn't look particularly strong and not many ideas. And whereas Italy, I think you can see there are pockets. Now, there are very simple things like basic tackling, basic defensive errors that kill you, but that's international rugby. If you're half a metre off where you need to be, you saw Sexton's intercept, he just took that ball half a metre too far. And even if you play against Italy, you play against Georgia, you'll get picked off like that. So they're the fine margins at top level rugby.
No, I think I get what you're saying. If you watch the two teams, I think the way you can see what Italy are trying to do. But as you say, the set piece maybe isn't quite right there. The execution is not quite right, but they're going the right direction. And I think they are quite a bit ahead of where Georgia are. Georgia a fair bit of grunt and power, and they can grind the odd team down, but they're not at the level, I think. Look, at the end of the day, Italy have had a bad run for 4 or 5 years. I think that team they've got, that squad they've got with Benetton in behind, and as you say, other players that you would know more about than us, I think they are going in the right direction. We keep saying I know, but I actually do believe they are. Replacing them with the likes of Georgia is a positive move at all at this point. I'd actually rather see Georgia maybe even enter a team into the Pro 14, Pro 16, whatever it's going to be. A bit like maybe the Jaguaries and Super Rugby, because I don't think they can compete at international level at this stage. And they need something interim, because that second level competition is all good and fine, but they don't seem to be getting a lot closer, to the tier teams. And I don't think Italy are far enough away to consider putting down into that tournament, because frankly, Italy will just go in and walk it every year as well, and probably by a bigger margin.
Yeah, I think we're in an awkward situation, because even in the World Cup, you saw Italy played Canada, and that was a big score, and you saw a difference in pace and power. And it's just that at the moment we're just caught in between that top tier and then the rest. We're really in that gap there, and there is a massive difference. There's a massive difference between who's in first place in the rankings to 15th. That's just the reality of the situation. But to become the best you can be, you have to play the best as well. So as you said, Zebra and Treviso playing week in, week out. I think Benetton, we had our 2 years ago, it was 2 years ago when we reached the playoff. That was a huge moment for Italian rugby, because we really did deserve that. And unfortunately, results haven't gone well this year, but you can't lack performance. I mean, it's again, it's just those small margins. But but I can tell you that people work their butts off to try get a win each week. Honestly, it's not easy at times, but that's the reality that we live in, and everything is based on results. But I do feel very left out, because both of you have your Ulster tops, and I just have my Benetton Christmas jumper on here, so it was just the first thing I threw on. So
nothing wrong. It was my birthday yesterday, and this is one of my presents.
Okay.
So are we going to see in the TV studio again soon? Will we see you in the TV studio again soon?
This week probably, yeah. This weekend, yeah.
Excellent.
Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Here now, Kate, we've got some latest news there. Thanks to Ian Gilbert. The women's Six Nation fixture between Ireland and France has been called off due to an outbreak of COVID within the French camp.
Right, there you go. And that was actually Dublin, wasn't
it? The French actually agreed to come over and play here.
I'm kind of going with what we were talking to Ian earlier. It's just looking like this tournament's pretty much over, or our game's going to be probably a goner anyway. Which is sad to see. And Ian, I look forward to next time we get you on the chat about what you're doing. You'll have quite a lot of miles under your belt, and you'll have worked a lot with players. It's just
fingers crossed. Yeah, geez, at this stage,
it's just a horrible season, isn't it? For that, it's just been a terrible year all around for everybody. But listen, guys, if we're going to move on to Ulster's start in the Pro 14. Obviously, we've got 3 games that we can briefly go through. Starting off with, in the game against Benetton, which I actually think was the tightest game we played. I was really impressed with Benetton in the first weekend, which finished Ulster 35, Benetton 24. Then we had the trip to Ospreys, which I thought was quite a surprising result for us. I thought Ospreys might do us in that one, but we won 12-24. And then the game last weekend, which I think was a bit of an easy one for Ulster in the end, because it was 40 points to 17, but he made a lot of changes in the second half and the performance dropped off, but job was done. So David, do you run through the first game and your thoughts on it?
Well, you know what? I've always found games against Benetton Treviso always to be the most closest to a banana skin you can ever get in the Pro 14. Benetton have always played really well against us, and when I sort of sat back and looked at it, I was like, why should we ever sort of maybe lucky to get away with the victory that we did? I think we made quite a lot of mistakes. We were going to make some mistakes anyway. First game out of the blocks, there's going to be issues with cohesion, and from standpoint, if you look at the line out over the 3 games, the line out has improved exponentially in my view. And it's those players coming through, especially where you have Herring called into the Ireland squad. We have the players, we have the depth there to be able to produce good line out ball. Even our signature mauls are going through and they're working well. The scrum, yes, it'll need a bit of work, but it always does. Especially in those first 4 to 5 games, you need to get that cohesion again. But overall, I thought we played well. We did let some soft tries through. Absolutely, some of our defence was a bit shocking, to be fair. But I think we were lucky to get through by 11.
I'm going to assume you watched that game, Ian, given it was Benetton.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on it? It was a tight game for quite a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was actually commenting on BBC Radio about it during the game, so I had to watch it. I had no choice. Well, first thing, I suppose, considering that was the first game back, the first start of the season in some way, seriously entertaining game, and just as a neutral fan, it was a breath of fresh air, to be honest. That first half in particular was just open running rugby, and for the small 600 crowd that was in attendance, they definitely would have got their money's worth. I don't know if they would have paid for the tickets or not, but it was sort of end-to-end stuff. So, yeah, I think Treviso can feel hard done by, but, again, just alluding to the young players, so Lowry and Hume and more and these guys, scoring tries, that's a breath of fresh air for Ulster Rugby. A produce of the home province, putting up performances. So, no, I think Ulster definitely deserved the win. I think it probably should have been a little bit tighter than what it was, but again, they're just small moments, and Ulster just, organised the game and controlled those moments better in the second half.
I think, I agree. No, I agree with you. I think Ulster deserved to win, but it was a tight game. And as David said, I mean, last season we had 2 incredibly tight games against Benetton home and away. Was it last season that we only beat them by 2 points at home? Or was that the season?
So last year we we had the draw when Nigel Owens gave a penalty try at the end during the Six Nations, I think, and then we lost a home 10-15.
Yeah, I mean, they're just always hard games. And I think even the games since the Benetton have played, they've just been on the wrong side of it. So, it's not an awful lot for them to start really, I think, hammering teams home. Because that was a decent Ulster side they played. I think that night, as you said, those young, they're not making up the numbers now. They're contributing to the squad. I mean, James Hume is going to be hard to shift out of that team the way he's playing at the minute. So, it's fantastic to see both teams going at it. And you say first game, and they just both went at it. It was fantastic. So we'll move on to. Did you watch the other Ulster games, Ian, before I ask you any more questions?
The Ospreys one, no. The Dragons I saw a bit more of. So
right, okay.
No, again,
Okay, well, the Ospreys game, well, Dave and I can discuss it. I actually thought that may be a banana skin for us, that game, because they played well. I think it was away to Edinburgh, wasn't it? They went up and but they looked like a really good side. But I have to say, I think the lads pulled off a really good performance there to win that, and again deserved to win it. Again, some of the same candidates. I think, as you said, David, the scrum performed better, the line out certainly performed better, the maul performed better. What I like to see in the second game, and I think we've seen it again in the third game, was the accuracy became better in the open play, because I think we've all seen trying to do, we just weren't doing it very well at times, referring back to some of the Italian play, and you know what they're trying to do, it's just not maybe been executed perfectly. But that seems to have been stepped up a little this season. What do you think, David?
For sure, as I said, you could see the progression certainly in accuracy. Even in terms of meters gained, you could see progression in that through. And I have to admit now, I'm liking the possibility of, once we get all these internationals out of the way, Hume and one McCluskey joining up for a bit of a battering session. I think they could cause a bit of havoc on defences. Certainly in that wee period between the end of the autumn internationals and Six Nations again next year. I think we've got we're finally getting some good quality depth in the centre partnerships.
Can I ask you something about that, Dave? Can I just interrupt you there and ask you something about that? Is it going to be? I know. I mean, Hume is a bit like all the other Irish centres. He can move between 12 and 13. So is it going to be McCluskey and Hume, or are we potentially looking at McCluskey and Moore? Because Moore to me looks like he's the lighter, the quicker probably guy. He's more the dance around, whereas Hume has pretty much got it all. I think he's also a good playmaker by the looks of it. He's not at all afraid to put the ball across the park to the wingers and sort of act almost like a second 10, which I think is interesting.
So would you think of sort of a Marshall McCluskey? Well, I think if you're thinking of like a Marshall McCluskey style, then maybe I would say Moore and Hume. I'd say Moore and Hume together, even actually. But even I would say Moore and McCluskey. If they develop that same sort of partnership that McCluskey has with Marshall there, just knowing where you are at the time when that wee pop pass comes through, to gain those extra meters, and even to bash one over the line for scores. I would say I would probably go Moore McCluskey, but then that's and I would say maybe give Marshall time with Hume just to develop the spatial awareness, to get those wee passes away and get those offloads.
I can ask you about that just from a positional sense. For me, the question I'm asking is, I think, are McCluskey and Hume too alike to play in the same team? Do you need that slight difference in players? I know we see the way that Ulster played in the past, for example, that McCluskey would be the barnstormer chipped through the offloader. And Luke Marshall generally knows where to be on his shoulder, which is, I think, what cost McCluskey in the green shirt. He goes off on his own, there's nobody with him, and he gets caught out at times. But Marshall knows where to be, and he can quite often offload to him. Are they too similar? What do you think is a good mix of centres?
I think it depends on what you want to do, what your sort of style of play is, who you're also coming up against. I think that's the thing why are Leinster such a dominant force, not only in the Pro 14 but in European rugby. Why are Saracens? They've got strength and depth in the squad, so you don't become so predictable as well when you play teams, but you also try and counteract. If you've got a slow centre partnership, then you might look at a Hugh Moore partnership to try and to counteract that. If you're going up against a French team and you need a bit more power, you're always going to put McCluskey in there. And I think actually he's, from having played against him numerous times, he's one of the hardest people to tackle, and he's been very unfortunate with Ireland not to get more game time. So I think, again, it just really depends on who you're going to be playing. I haven't seen enough of James Hume and Stuart Moore, to be honest, to make a decision. I would say that McCluskey, for the big games, he'll always be there at 12. And I think it just comes down to form, who's actually performing on the day, and closer to the game time, and who what Dan McFarland sees fit for that game.
Right, but it's nice for Ulster to actually have those choices. I think that's something in the past.
Yeah.
We tended to rely very much on the same two guys every week, even last season to an extent. But James Hume started to come through then. Young Moores come through. We've even got the likes of young Curtis to come back when his injuries. He was starting to look quite good. So we've got options now that we just didn't have before and haven't had for years. Nice to see. We'll move on to the Dragons game last weekend. I'll throw a little assessment of that out. I thought Ulster came out and just completely dominated that game in the first half. We're probably going to have to criticise Dragons a little in their intensity and defence. They just didn't seem to be into the game, but Ulster certainly took advantage of that, and we're 35 points to 3 up at half time. The second half, actually, Dragons won it on points, but by then, I think Dan McFarland made a lot of changes very quickly, and it's certainly affected Ulster's tempo. That's a little bit of a worry in a sense, because we took off the likes of Kutsea, and he started swapping out some of the big lads, and we didn't seem to have the same impact. But again, I think Dan's, and again, correct me if you think I'm wrong, guys, Dan seems to be rotating the squad an awful lot this season, because Matty Ray's been a fantastic carrier for us so far this season. He wasn't there. So he just seems to be mixing it up and giving everybody as much game time as he can earlier on in the season, which might, because a lot of fans were saying, why can't Ulster put these games to bed? When I looked at the second half changes, I thought it was never about putting that game to bed. It was put to bed at half time. It was just about giving these guys a bit of game time. That was for me anyway. What do you think, David?
Certainly from 15 minutes, I was just sitting there agape wondering, who are you and what have you done with Ulster Rugby? It was a completely different Ulster to what we had seen in the first two rounds. I think it's that sort of thing that we need to keep going now and get as the rounds progress. I think we need to try and dominate that first 10 minutes and try and give ourselves a fighting chance of at least getting to halftime with something, especially against maybe the mightier opposition, especially when we get to the Leinster games and the Interpro series again. I think we're going to be finding that unless we get points on the board in the first 10 minutes of any game now, we could possibly struggle depending on what their defense is like and what's going on with Dragons. You're right, Nigel. I'll agree with you. Their defense just didn't seem to want to turn up, because they were just taking one look at what we were doing and just said, no, we don't want any of that. Thank you very much. We'll get the bus later. And for me, it was obviously there must have been a few layers of paint stripped off the away changing room. Especially the way the Dragons came out in that second half. I thought, if you guys had come out that way in the first half, we would have a much different game in our hands and probably a much tighter scoreline than what it ended up with.
Very possibly, I could possibly right. I think their bench players made a lot of difference too. People putting hands up for the next game. The Ulster players not so much. maybe. As I say, definitely Ulster's intensity dropped off. They switched it on for one try and showed they could still turn it up. And, against bigger opposition, you could find yourself coming a bit unstuck in that sort of scenario. But my argument again would be, if you're in a game against bigger opposition in a tighter game, you wouldn't make that many changes that quick anyway. He just basically emptied the bench, didn't he? Right, lads, off you go, have a game. You won't do that in a big game. You'll change your players as they tire, as you need fresh feet into the positions that are tiring. So it's you can't compare that. I think you didn't see the game, Ian. You were saying,
yeah, no, I didn't. I did. So I mean, the Dragons obviously were poor enough, but I think that's, if maybe I'm trying to think what the way the coaches are thinking, that's the difference between a top team, a top team. Say if we're trying to make a comparison with Leinster and maybe Ulster at the moment. I mean, Ulster undoubtedly have serious talent and fantastic players, but I'm sure the coaching staff, like your point of emptying the bench, getting players game time is absolutely spot on. But that Dragons winning a second half is not probably good enough. And that's the standard then that needs to be reached. And if Leinster were to play that game, would the Dragons have won the second half? I don't know. Like, I watched the Zebre game, and Zebre were there to have 70 points put on them, and they it was 68. And so they did it. They absolutely, fifth gear the foot was never taken off. So that's the challenge, I suppose. Whenever you find yourself in those situations, it's really like the game was put to bed. Like, we're not, maybe this is me being ultra critical, but I think that's the step that definitely the coaches will be looking to.
It's a fair comment, and obviously you're not there, so you don't know whether it was coach driven or whether it was players not performing to the coach's expectations in the second half.
It's also from a player point of view, when it's 35-3 at halftime, you're only human as well. It's the game is done, so it is easy, I suppose, to get into that sort of mindset.
Right. Okay. Sorry, Dave, are you going to say something?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm just going to say, welcome everybody. We're halfway through the show here. Welcome everybody to the WhiteWalkers chatting Craic. Say the Night King himself, Mr. Gill, and Mr. Quigley, Mr. McKinley down below. Welcome. It's great to finally get you on the show and have a chat about all things grassroots, a wee bit about your time with Benetton and Italy, and obviously we want to head out to the partners who are sponsoring the show tonight. First of all, Kinako Biltong, one of our local companies, and run by our good friend Ilse van Staden and her partner, taking Irish beef plus South African spices and making some very, very fine biltong, especially the garlic stuff. Hello. Want to give a shout out to the Irish Whiskey Review, one of our good friends who gives blue badge tours and also knows a heck of a lot about good Irish whiskey. And also to our good friends at Hellbent, of course, the great company run by Ulster's own Louis Liddick and friends. Obviously, they take their again fine Irish beef, add a little bit of South African spice to it. Absolutely delicious stuff coming through, and it's great to have Hellbent with us through on the WhiteWalker show. And I'm just going to take a couple of these shout outs here as well. Ian, let's see, Gerald Williamson. Hello, Gerald. Good to see you on the show, Gerald. Quick question here. Should the Six Nations remain as it is, or make it 8, even divided into 2 groups of 4, with the winners of each group playing each other in a final? Ian, what do you think of that?
Conferences?
Yeah, I suppose we'll get a glimpse of that once the Six Nations is over. I think it's just trying to find the time in a calendar year to get those games done. I think we're really at a stretch at the moment, and trying to find extra weekends is going to be a very difficult thing. So it's up to player resources as well, depending on how many players you have. I know maybe from an Italy standpoint, it could be a tricky thing. So, but maybe we'll see what it's like now in the coming weeks after the Six Nations finished.
Good stuff. And I want to give a wee shout out to our good friend Reenan Stanikamp. I know Reenan, he may watch us on the catch up sometime, but just to let you know, Reenan, we are thinking about you, buddy. So we want to pass our best wishes to you. And speaking of our South African brethren, there's Casper van der Merwe all the way from Bloemfontein. Hello, Casper. Good to see you. And he was
Mr. Cheetahs himself.
There you go. That's a great mix of the two. You get the Cheetahs and get the Ulsterman in there. That's a great one. Sean McGavin, all aboard the Benetton bus.
Fantastic.
261 calling in a Macara. He says, Sean says, there are second favourite teams in Munster.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
That's.
I'm going to say something though. Just you were saying about Louis Ludick, and the pundits done us a great favour by making a couple of references on Sunday. Louis Ludick not having scored for 20 months, and he gets 2. Well done, lads. Keep that one up.
Let's see who else we got there. Ian Gilbert, schools and crashes, and he goes, definition of a crash is a car accident on the Malone Road. Will remain open during the French lockdown, so maybe the game will go ahead. Think of that as you may. And also, Sean put one up here. Lads, any thoughts on Jack McGrath not getting in the Ireland squad? I can't get my head around it.
Well, Jack didn't play last week, did he?
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. No.
Oh, so maybe there's a niggle or an injury there as well, but that doesn't mean he's in the shout for an Ireland spot. We'll be talking about this towards the end of the show anyway, lads, so we'll not go into any great detail. That could be an awfully long conversation. Just one thing to say about regarding the Pro 14. We've got Cardiff Blues away on Monday night. That for me is going to be a tough one because that was a hell of a spectacle of rugby we saw against Munster at the weekend. Munster came out thoroughly deserved, but what a game! Sorry, Monday night. What a game of rugby that was. Did you see that one, Ian?
Yeah, I just saw the highlights of that. So, Cardiff play on the edge. Very exciting team to watch, and that's going to be a tough one. But Ulster can definitely go there and win. With the synthetic fields, it's good for open running rugby, so they can definitely do a job.
Well, let's hope so. I hope you're right. Because I think that's going to be a tough game. David?
What about the concept of Monday Night Rugby? What do you guys think of it?
I'm not so keen on the half five starts, 6 o'clock starts, because sometimes I'm home from work at that time. So I'm going to have to make work change to suit my rugby rather than the other way around, And we've got 3 games, I think, next Monday, haven't we?
We do indeed, yeah.
That's 3 games. I mean, that's the life totally pissed off. It's just going to be, I hate it. Right. So you've got Super Saturday on Saturday. You probably only have games on Sunday to watch. And we've got Monday night now as well. So, yeah, it makes me very good.
When we start earning brownie points here, lads.
Well, after the many years, I'm married, that gets hard to do, so it doesn't. Okay, lads, thanks for that. We'll move on to we can't really talk an awful lot about the detail of this, but as we know, there was an Academy Sevens program started a couple of weeks ago in Dublin, and it involved at this stage the Ireland Sevens, Ulster, Munster, and Connacht Academy Sevens teams. The results, obviously, as you would expect, the Ireland team won all their games. You would absolutely shocked if they didn't. Second in that would have been Ulster, who lost against Ireland, but got a quite heavy win against Connacht. Remember the scores? That 45-5 was that one, David? I think it was, wasn't it?
It was indeed, yeah.
The Munster one was a tighter game. What was the score in it? I've got 24-12 in my head, but that may not be right, is it?
No, I'll need to double check. I don't know myself, I'll be honest.
Anyway, Leinster didn't field the side. I don't know why that was. I was asking a few people why, and maybe, Ian, you might have an idea, do you? I think they were talking about the next time round, but...
to be honest, I have no idea. And I'm going to be straight up and truthful about this. So I I think you guys are the more, you've got the expertise on this more than I do.
I was wondering maybe if it was just because of the, they've got quite a few injuries at the moment, Leinster, and they've got a lot of guys away with the international camp. Maybe they didn't want academy players away in a tournament as well. But I'm just
no, I think to be honest, I suppose the way that everything is going, just getting players playing, is the big thing at the moment. I know this is on a smaller scale, but with Ballymena Academy, speaking with John Andrews, our coach, trying to plan for the foreseeable is quite difficult. And whenever you got 2 games in a row, it was just about, well, grab them and just, get some sort of playing. So maybe, even if guys are in on the sevens program, at least they're just getting some sort of rugby under their belt, just something to grab onto anything at this stage.
Yeah, I suppose so. I absolutely love the sevens, because one thing I think it really, obviously it's for the faster, wider playing player, but every sevens player that plays at a reasonable level seems to have under 15s. I looked at when he came into the Ulster setup, the one thing that lad does is tackle, and he doesn't miss many, and that seems to be players. And I wonder, is that why we're seeing a big push on Academy sevens and Ireland sevens? Not so much because there is a great sevens tournament out there that we should be a part of and should be feeding into, but what it contributes to the 15-a-side game as well, because a lot of these guys play years and move over to 15s, don't they?
Well, yeah, I think didn't Hugo Keenan come through the sevens, if I'm correct?
Yes, I think he did actually. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so it's
as well.
Yeah, so it's a bloody tough sport. I tell you that. I tried it with Italy, and it's a completely different ball game. But the core skills are there, of catch, run, pass, tackle, ruck, and so it's. You just need to be seriously fit.
It's a seriously fit man's game, isn't it? There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Well, looking at the Ulster side of it, Aaron Sexton obviously has had a good run out with that, and the YouTube video of his try in that tournament, it'll stay with you for quite a while. For me, also Lewis Finley showing a lot of promise in there, and Cormac is a Chukwu.
Well said,
yes, I had to go ahead.
You've been practicing all week.
Cormac has had a real good run there in the sevens, and I think we'll see him progress as the academy tournaments progress on. Funny enough, just see there in the comments, Gerald just said Leinster had a few injuries and others weren't available for that. For that sevens tournament, so that's and as Sean said, Will Connors, Shane Daly was another sevens player called up to the senior squad. So so we are seeing that progression now, using the seven skills, to and it is percolating into the 15-a-side game.
I think I speak for many Ulster fans, though. Please, Dan, at some stage, can we see Aaron Sexton on the wing? Because I think every Ulster fan is just buzzing to see what this lad can do. We've seen what he's done for the A's. He's in the sevens, but I think he's got he's on the full Irish sevens, is he? He's got a project type of thing going on. He's a prospect, isn't he?
Certainly a prospect for sure. And I think at the minute now, I think he's still living within the Ulster sevens at the minute, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him called up to the Irish sevens before long. Yeah.
He's an absolute flying machine. The guy. I think he's the Irish men's 100 and 200 meter record holder, isn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah.
No Irish athletics.
He's not far off the Olympic standard.
Yes.
That's how good he is.
Well, hopefully we'll see a lot more of him, because we're seeing those video snippets of him, and it just tempts the Ulster. The Ulster fans are just crying out to see him in the 15s. Oh wait, I hope the poor lad doesn't come into the senior side and have a terrible first game, because what the fans are like.
One player media says it all.
Oh, absolutely. So, I think when's the next one planned, David? It's not far away. The next round of that, although it's not really. forward. It's
I
a
think
weekend of sevens. Isn't it?
Let's see. I'm just trying to have a wee look here.
There's no Leinster. We're hoping to field aside in that.
Leinster are hoping to appeal to say. I think we're looking into the new year now at this rate of going. But they haven't released the fixtures just yet for that.
Right. Okay. Well, hopefully Leinster will. Well, no. Hopefully they won't, and Ulster can stay second in the table behind Ireland.
I think even there, we'd still be sitting there in second, and that's my own.
No, I'd say Leinster sevens are probably quite a tidy side too. Their academy sevens, I mean, given their academy. Right. Okay. We'll get on to this last subject. It'll probably be the bloody longest anyway. Ireland selection. We've seen a team that's been announced, and maybe Joe could put that up for us when he gets a chance. That's playing against France this weekend. I don't think there are any shocks in it for me, and even in centre, although we all love Big Stew, I personally predicted it would be Henshaw and Farrell on the bench. Other than that, nothing really to shout about. It's been forced by changes forced by injuries, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this team do in Paris if this game goes ahead. Of course, this isn't Italy they're playing. I don't mean that disrespectfully, Ian, but away in Paris, big ask, but they do seem to be playing much more expansive rugby than we've seen in the past. What do you think if the game goes ahead? Does this team stand a realistic chance of A, winning, and B, putting a bonus point in France, which is not something we've done for an awful long time?
Yeah, I think when I sort of previewed the game a little bit, sort of last weekend, I think I made mention to Ireland having to go with the mindset of winning first rather than looking for the bonus point. But the real positive thing there is that on that Irish team, you've got players that have beaten France in Paris, so there'll be no fear factor. There'll be no anything like that. Do I think it's a mammoth task? Absolutely. Given how France are playing, their physicality, their defense, their strength in attack, Vakatawa, players like that in their backline, Intermac, becoming a serious 10. It's going to be a massive task. Serious test, I think, to see actually where this Irish team is at now. And I think with, Andy Farrell, you'll get an idea of where they're at. But I think it's an intriguing battle.
Mm-hmm. Do you think John Kenny was called up as cover, and I think a lot of Ulster fans feel a little bit annoyed that the reason for him being dropped seemed to be for the couple of weeks after lockdown where Ulster didn't perform well at all, as we well know. He's been superb in the first 3 weeks of the Pro 14. And he's been called in and not picked. And I suppose we could argue the same with Stu McCluskey. I don't personally really see anybody else in the Ulster team that's really pushing for an Ireland spot at this time. We've got a lot of up-and-comers, guys that might be there. I think James Hume's one we're probably going to be looking at in the future, a couple of years' time, maybe, whatever. But I'm not saying we should have 10 players now on the side, not at all. I think Stu McCluskey is one that does confuse me a little. He seems to get to an awful lot of camps, doesn't play games. I think the last time he played, I watched him live in Dublin. It was against the USA. And John Cooney just does not seem to be able to convince the Irish management that he deserves a crack at starting a serious game. What do you think, Ian, these lads can do to push on? The reason is, of course, we're all a bit provincially biased. Of course we are. There's no doubt about that. But when you see lads that are in sort of the Pro 14 Dream Team 2 seasons in a row, one gets into the European Team of the Year, and he's been nominated for European Player of the Year, he can't get a look in his national side. It does beg questions.
Yeah, of course. And, John is seriously, is really gifted and, has been a fantastic servant to Ulster Rugby, considering he, had to fill the boots of Ruan Pinar. He's done an unbelievable job because of that. So, no, I think he can definitely feel hard done by. But I suppose it's just, Andy Farrell and Joe probably before him have seen things in in Conor Murray, you know, he's been a world-class player. He's played for the Lions, and you don't get there for nothing. So I think you saw with Murray that his form was coming back a little bit. The speed of his ball, you know, his passing has never been a problem. I think it was just maybe the speed at which he was getting there. I think that dramatically improved against the game against Italy. So, no, I think John can definitely feel hard done by, but that's, you know, that's the ruthless streak of professional rugby, is that sometimes some coaches have a different idea to maybe what everyone else thinks, and it doesn't maybe fit into the mold of what they're trying to create. So I suppose you're just really fortunate that Ireland have so many good backup nines, and good nines, you know, Marmion and Luke McGrath, I know Gibson Park has come on board now. I mean, they're quality players. And that's for Ireland to break this barrier of the quarterfinal mark, that's what you need. You need to have these 3-4 world-class players constantly around.
I think somebody was talking about Stu McCluskey as well, in a recent Three Blokes video, and they said something that maybe is true. They're saying, you know, at any other time, Stu McCluskey would probably be a walk-in on that team, but he's just come along at a time where Ireland are so knee-deep in quality centres. They've just got there ahead of him. They know the system, they play it well. Why change it? You know, why change it? And the reason I was sort of saying, well, the reason we need to change it is because we're playing too much crash bang wallop rugby, too much 12-man rugby. We're too narrow. We're not going wide. We're not, you know, we're very predictable. I think we saw enough from the Italy game that suggests Andy Farrell's going to try and change that a little. He seems to want to go a little bit more dynamic, open up play, variations. I think he's going to have to, because I don't know about you guys, I'm sick of England having us our asses because we're so predictable. You know? We've got to fix that. We can't be envious of them anymore. We've got to go out and beat them, which we've done before. And I think possibly Farrell will do that. Stockdale the fullback. Both of you, gents, we'll start with you, playing David. Good move or just patching up a hole?
Actually, I think it's a good move. Like, you know, Stockdale's been playing for Ulster now at fullback for quite a while. You know, he's had a real good go at it, and I think really it was all about giving him that extra skill set. And that's what I think anyway. And I don't think anybody's going to try and people will try and convince me otherwise, but I really think it's about getting that extra skill set together. And certainly, considering we have a dearth of options now, both at wing and, you know, if you look at Keenan, you look at the way Keenan played there, you know, it's going to be seriously difficult for Stockdale to get back out in the wing, in my opinion. And so, you know, he's had to look at other options.
Or could we see Keenan go to fullback, because that's one position he can play as well?
Like Keenan can play fullback as well. So again, I think if you have that versatility, and if you're able to get a grasp on that unpredictable factor, is that X factor, is that a little bit of unpredictability that you could sort of fire out a team, and you're putting, say, even if you put England off their game a wee bit, especially if you put Keenan in at fullback and Stockdale back in the wing, but maybe at half time you can shift around your pieces a wee bit, you know, and shift them back around, and you've got an extra dimension which perhaps they've planned for, perhaps they've not. So you've got that little bit of extra oomph, you know, behind you, that you can switch that tactic at will. And all it takes is just, you know, one line, one change, and let's try something different. So instead of playing this crash bang wallop rugby that frankly we've all got too well used to, I believe. I think if we keep Stockdale, give him more time at fullback, he's got the tools, he's got the foot to get big grounded, and we've seen that. You know, like some of the kicks he produced there, you know, you were gaining 30, 40, even 50 meters at one point. So from my perspective, definitely I think we should be starting him more at fullback, just to give him that extra experience, give him the skill set, and maybe it might just fix a few of those defensive frailties that other provinces have been want to remind us that he has, so that he can be sort of shifted off the team completely and maybe leave us with only maybe one player in a 23 instead of two.
Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, he's definitely got the skill set to play there. Huge vote of confidence that the coaching staff they do see him there. And again, it's just trying to create that player profile, in each position. So they, see Hammer and they see Stockdale as a 15. So I think playing wing and 15 are two completely different positions in terms of your defensive positioning. You're a lot more exposed at fullback, but like that, I mean, he's got the skill set. Just needs a bit of time, maybe, to get used to different scenarios in the game that maybe were not presented. But he also played 15 a lot, as a kid, didn't he? Played under 20s as well. So it's not a position that's strange for him. But at international level, again, there's maybe a couple of things that might be slightly different.
Yeah. Well, I think funny you mentioned that. Andy Farrell went out of his way to basically back him up at 15 and say, we think he's got to do that. So that sort of shows a bit of intent. I suspect the team for Ulster has probably become at the request of the coach as well. Let's see him there. We've not got Will Allison for quite a while now, and we still don't know what the score is with Will. Although I know he had to he got surgery on the back, so hopefully that'll herald a return. But yeah, funny, Keenan is another one. I mean, there's a lad that almost looks like he could just slot into fullback. I think he plays fullback for Leinster when he's on, doesn't he? Although he was on the wing one week.
He has done, yeah.
He's a fullback as well, isn't he? He is a fullback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really looks like he's an exciting looking player, I have to say. Everybody's talking about James Lowe, the new Messiah, James Lowe, and I'm sort of thinking, that lad Keenan, he could surprise all and actually put any one of them out of the team. Stockdale, Lowe, any of them, because he's looked fantastic in the first couple of games I've seen him for Leinster and then for Ireland. He really looks like he's got the skills to push on. Hopefully he does. We all know he can start great. The only thing I was glad of was he probably should have had a hat trick on Saturday. Ryan did block the player. I'm not sure the player would have got Stockdale, but he did block him. I never thought to myself, well, hang on a minute. The last lad that scored a hat trick in his debut didn't fare too well down the line. That was Craic, if you recall. And he didn't get picked very often after that, so maybe he done a favour. But it's a pity because it was a lovely, lovely try. So we think, what's your gut feeling on Saturday? Not going to happen,
Ian? Gut feeling would be it's an extremely difficult game. If I'm to pick on form, I would pick France. Just the way they're playing. They seem to have everything at the moment. They have a bit of French flair. They've got a serious ruthless edge in defence with Sean Edwards there. And just home advantage again. I think those factors just sort of weigh in France's favour. But, if any team can beat them, it is Ireland. And Sexton's done it before with miracles. Why can't he do it again?
And also the French have Leroux saying as he's managed to escape any bans after that strange elbow thrust at AWJ. So, but I'm the head says France, but the boot says Ireland by 3.
Yeah. I think it really depends which France turn up to, because sometimes they can turn up and be a bit antsy, and if you get under their skin, they kind of lose their shape a bit, don't they?
I think it depends on Intimac. I think if Intimac's playing well, we're in trouble. If not, then there's plenty of space. And
Ian Gilbert just mentioned they've got Dupont as well, who's no slack player, is he? Ian, do you think the squad will change much then for the Eight Nation tournament as and if and when it kicks off?
Yeah, I think it will, because you just have so many games. So absolutely, I think it'll be a chance to give guys, on the fringes, like you're talking about McCloskey and Ross Byrne and these guys that maybe haven't gotten many starts under their belts, just to get that experience. I think finishing the Six Nations is massive. Making sure that you can potentially win a title from a doom and gloom result in Twickenham would be an unbelievably positive result from an Irish point of view. So, but no, I think undoubtedly the squad will rotate quite a lot.
And do you think for the Autumn Nations Cup, Ian, do you think there'll be much change in the Irish squad?
Yeah, absolutely. I think guys have sort of proven themselves, at Six Nations level World Cups. So I think it is a good chance to give younger guys an opportunity.
Okay. Right, gents. I think we better wrap that up because we're overstaying our welcome, and Joe gets very angry if we overstay our welcome. So good review. And Ian, brilliant to have you on the show. Always brilliant.
No, thanks for having me.
And
Appreciate it.
Hopefully you'll come on again when you've had a lot of coaching behind you and stuff to tell us. Very really. But mate, always brilliant. Always appreciate you coming on and giving us reviews.
No worries. Anytime.
Dave the Wingnut.
Night King.
Always a pleasure, my man. Enjoy work.
Absolutely.
Guys, obviously, we'll just remind you again, this has been the Ulster Rugby Roundup, Banter and Craic show that we do. And it's in partnering with Kane Addo Biltong, Hellbent Foods, and the Irish Whiskey Review. The next show coming up is regarding, keep an eye out for them because I've absolutely forgotten the dates. The next show that Three Blokes the Ball we're doing will be Wheelchair Rugby. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be doing, he'll be doing a Pro 14 review, which I think the dates to be confirmed. But keep an eye on the Three Blokes in the Ball page because there's 3 shows a week. Sometimes there's more, depending on what's going on. Keep your eyes open, guys, and enjoy them. Gents, thanks again. Fantastic to talk to you as always. And Dave, we'll see you next time. And Ian, we'll see you soon, mate. And best of luck with bringing down.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Take care.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.